Um, yeah, Steve, my concern about this approach is that it presumes a functional government that isn't corrupted by big money and dark money. And so my question is, how do you deal with a policy approach that hits all three worldviews the way you described, yet can't get through the resistance of big money and dark money that is inhibiting good policy?
Sure. Well, that's why we're starting. Excellent question, Ann. Thank you. We're starting with this politics of culture, with the idea that the structural changes like campaign finance reform, right, which is a very important issue. I'm fully behind it. It's desperately needed. And some say this is a prerequisite to any other kind of meaningful political progress. And in some ways I would agree, but I would just go one step further, and a prerequisite to having the political will to get the momentum you need to significantly reform campaign finance itself requires an agreement or an emerging constituency that won't tolerate that anymore. And even though there's plenty of progressives, many large demographic numbers of people who are against the dysfunctional system of campaign finance that we have, those folks are trumped, not necessarily because folks on the right like big money in politics, but because they're afraid that any structural reform whatsoever is going to favor the left. And it's just really just a structural way of giving the left more power than it has. It's like things have been devolved into a power game. So even excellent solutions like a reasonable reform of campaign finance is currently stymied in this vetocracy, right? Francis Fukuyama refers to America as it's not a democracy, it's a vetocracy, because one side effectively vetoes the other, and resulting in the gridlock that we've got. So rather than starting in the normal political places, right, arguing, on political platforms or trying to, elect someone who is running on the issue of campaign finance reform, those are solutions. Like I said, there's a suite of solutions, and that's certainly one of them. But so far, even though there've been a lot of people of good sense and good faith working on it, they haven't gotten the job done because it's a victim of the larger gridlock that we're facing. So that's why at least one of the solutions, one that's not being pursued by any other groups or interests, is evolving the culture, starting to create this trim tab so that we can begin to turn the ship a little bit away from this intense gridlock where one party vetoes the other, and that we can begin to say, look, we're not progressive or modernist or traditional, and we can still see that we can have a much more functional politics if campaign finance were to be effectively reformed. But in order to do that, it's a chicken and an egg. You need to build the political will, and to build the political will, you have to clear away all these cultural barriers to political will formation, which involves beginning to develop this post-progressive political position. Maybe someday it'll be a political party. It doesn't really want to be a party, though, because we don't want to just be another faction. We don't want to be a spoiler of otherwise functional electoral results. We want to show what it means to have a meaningful political progress by stepping outside the culture war and then inviting large portions of the rest of the society to step outside the culture war with us. But if you're a hardcore someone on the right, then you have all this social support not to do that. If you're a progressive, you hate people on the right, and the idea of giving them a win is something that is like cultural betrayal. So we have to transcend that entire mess in a way and start deliberating in a new space that has some degree of liberation and insulation from that gridlocked condition. So that's why let's start with culture. Let's build a political movement. If we can get momentum for the political movement, then campaign finance reform will become doable in a way that it isn't now.